And this lecture is for Law 65, Advanced Legal Technologies. And I'm going to be going over the materials that are covered in Chapter 3 of the textbook. Chapter 3 is a basic introduction to computers and computer systems. Some of it may be very familiar to many of you in the classroom. Others with less computer background will find the lecture and the textbook materials informative. So let's get started. One of the things that I ask people to do when we consider this subject about the use of computers in the law office is to think about how the use of computers and technology has changed over the years. And if you think back over your own experience with technology, social media, etc., I'd like to think of some of the questions that are posed on this slide here. First one, what kind of computers do you currently use? Do you use a laptop? Do you have a desktop computer? Do you most of your work at the tablet? Do you do most of your computing work with a phone? All of these are possibilities. Second, what kind of computers do you grow up using and are you currently using? Are you a Windows person? Did you use PC computers? Are you a Mac user using Apple computers? Do you use a Google Chrome book with a completely different operating system, or something even more out there like Linux or some other system? Again, all of these are different options. Third, how old were you when you got your first cell phone? It's interesting to see how young some people are getting their first cell phone. One of my daughters was telling her about one of her sixth grade son's classmates has a cell phone, and said, well, the reason for that is his parents are divorced, and he has to have ability to get a hold of both of them. I thought that was interesting. Four, again, thinking about how we use technology. What kind of device do you use? If you use social media, what are you using to post on social media? Is it a phone? Is it a tablet? Is it a computer? Same question with respect to text messages. You can send text messages with phones, with tablets, and computers. Which one do you use? Number five, when you're writing papers for school, what kind of device are you using? Again, is it a computer? Is it a tablet? Some other device? And then finally, what kind of device do you use to access Canvas? All of these cause us to think about the various types of legal technologies out here, and forces us to think about what kind of changes that law firms have made over the past few years regarding computer equipment. At page 57 of the textbook, we did deal with the opening scenario of the class. And you recall that this deals with a young lawyer that's just coming out of a judicial clerkship that wants to start up his own law office, has no experience whatsoever, and is hiring away a very experienced paralegal to try to set up the law office. And they talk about what kind of materials will be needed to start up a law office. His immediate intention was to buy one inexpensive desktop computer with basic word processing program, and with the advice of the paralegal, realized that was kind of naive, and that he's going to need absolutely a lot more. It's going to need much more than just basic word processing programs. And we'll talk about that more tonight. It's also going to need a lot more hardware than just a single workstation that you can work with. And as the paralegal advised him, it needs to come up with a system that is going to allow the practice to grow in the future. So, when we're thinking about what kind of hardware and software is required to open up a law office, again, it seems obvious that we do need some kind of computer equipment, workstations for individual users, more likely a server where data can be stored, served, and accessed, laptops to allow the office to be mobile, and those laptops could then be used to access the materials on the server. In the old days, we would have a fax machine. Again, fax machines are becoming less and less necessary, except if you're dealing with a lot of medical people. A photocopy machine certainly is something that you would want to have, and certainly a scanner. As we make the move towards paperless offices, it's important to be able to scan paper material, converting that into digital material. So again, all of these things are going to be necessary and used in a law office. Another thing I ask people to think about in this context is what type of monitors you want to use. How many of you use more than one monitor at your with the computer? I originally thought that was kind of an ostentatious till I actually started doing it, and I don't know how I would get along on a day-to-day basis without multiple monitors. I have on my desktop, I have a monitor that I can plug my laptop into. I do have a standalone computer that also has access to two monitors. And you find when you have more than one monitor up there, it allows you to have multiple windows open at the same time. And once you get used to it, going back to just working on a laptop, if you're in a Starbucks or something like that, with just one screen, it can seem very, very limiting. Okay, turning to computers in general, the computer system in a law office, a computer basically is made up of or there's two separate components to a computer. One is the hardware. That's the physical part of the computer, the hard drive, the memory, all of the other tangential things on it, and the motherboard, the speed of the processor, all of that is involved in the hardware. But we also have software that's associated with it. Hardware is meaningless without software to run on the software, as software is meaningless without hardware to run on it. And we think about the development of central processing units, the core part of a computer. What you see in the slide here is a modern look of various mainframe computers. This would be in a server farm, and these are vastly powerful machines that store and process information. Those of you that have Apple Watches or some other kind of a smartwatch, and you look at that, the processing power in that Apple Watch is many times as powerful as the most gigantic mainframe computer in the 1970s. So that shows you, the evolution in computer technology. It's hard to believe that people went to the moon without using computers and with systems that were devised on using slide rules. You also think about the computers that are piloting some of the remote satellites that are going out outside the solar system. Incredibly primitive technology from today's standpoint, but still works to power these things. But again, this shows the development of computer technology. And I think the text talks about the theory that's called Moore's law, M-O-R-E. He was an engineer, and he postulated that computing power would double, I think every 18 months or 2 years or something like that. And if you do the math on that, it becomes exponentially more powerful. And he's been basically turned out to be correct. But I mean, the way that these processes go faster and faster and faster, they become smaller and smaller and smaller to where literally things can only be seen on a with a microscope. Okay, again, just a basic introduction to computers and computer technology. The CPU, the central processing unit, is the chip. And that is the thing that interprets computer instructions and processes data. These days, chips are made by a number of manufacturers. Intel has historically been the dominant maker of computer chips, but there certainly are others. Apple has started to make their own chips, and the new M class chips of Apple that Apple is putting out in their devices are chips that are designed and manufactured by Apple. The speed of the CPU is how quickly it can process data. Obviously, the higher the processing, or the higher the speed, the more data that can be processed in a swifter period of time. RAM, random access memory, is a temporary computer memory that stores work in process. The more RAM you have, the quicker that the computer can process things. So when you're upgrading computers, you often have a choice to add additional RAM. For law firm purposes, we're generally not terribly concerned with having huge amounts of RAM. It's more important to have large amounts of RAM for people doing like graphic designs, but things we do in law offices generally don't require massive amounts of RAM. The computers in the CPU operate pursuant to an operating system, and this is which provides the basic instructions for starting up the computer and processing the data. We have different types of computer systems. Again, a standalone computer is one that sits by itself, kind of as its name indicates, and can work on its own. This is opposed to a computer that is a networked computer that where the standalone computer really is an adjunct to the network computer that contains most of the data, probably most of the computer programs, and can be accessed system-wide. So as we'll talk later in the class, the role of the network computer is being complemented by the use of cloud computing, which we'll talk about in greater detail. And by way of cloud computing, I mean computer systems whereby the actual applications and data is not stored on local servers, but rather on the internet. So again, Exhibit 3.3, the slide shows here, it's a typical small office or home network. We have a file server up at the top, 2 workstations that are linked to the file server, and then they show printers being attached to the file server. This could be easily modified to have a central printer, a network printer that would be linked to the file server, and people from each workstation could print to the network printer. So in most offices, there may be a a relatively low powered printer at the desk, and then a higher powered a printer linked to the server for bigger jobs. All right, again, the operating system, as I said, provides basic instructions to the computer on how to operate, and the two primary computer systems that we've used over the past decades have been Windows PC and Apple. The PC it has a dominant position in the legal and business communities, whereby the Apple is more dominant in graphic education, artistic, etc. But as we'll be talking in the class, these distinctions are becoming blurred because of the ability of computers to cross over and use cloud-based programming. But still, most computers that we see out there are based on Microsoft Windows, and there have been various versions of Windows out there, and most computers now run on Windows 10. There's also Windows 11 out there. Apple computers, on the other hand, use the Mac OS meaning operating system. And we also talk about Windows OS. Again, the big difference between the two is the Microsoft Windows can be placed on computers manufactured by any number of computer manufacturers. We think of Dell or HP, things like that, where you only find Apple operating system on Mac computers. There, you do have the ability to have emulation programs, and so, for instance, if someone is an Apple person and there's one or two Windows program that they just have to have, there are emulation programs that allow the Apple user to run the Windows programs on the Apple machine. The other types of operating systems that are out there are, I mentioned it earlier, for main regular computers, is Linux. Linux is an open source software or operating system, and you will see it on occasions. It's not a mainstream system, so we're really not going to be talking about it in the class. As we have discussed and will be discussing, much of the work that is done in the real world now is done on phones and in tablets. And similarly, we have two competing types of operating systems for phones and tablets: iOS for the Apple devices like the iPhone and the iPad, and then we have Android with the Google operating system for non-Apple devices. The third alternative to that is becoming more and more prevalent is Chrome, and Chrome runs on machines manufactured by Google. So you hear like a Google Chromebook or something like that. Chrome operates on that and provides the operating system. Again, Android is also manufactured by Google, but it can be used on non-Google manufactured devices. So if you have a tablet that's made by HP or some other manufacturer, they're more likely to use Android. And similarly for telephones, most non-Apple telephones run on an Android operating system. Okay, enough of the basics of computers. next, we turn to applications, software programs that actually do things. And we differentiate between general applications and specialty application software. Again, we come back to the term application. It's a type of a software that's used to perform a specific function. Okay, so general applications are what we consider to be office suites. The most popular office suite is the one I pushed on you earlier in the class, is the Office 365. That is the combination of Microsoft programs, Word, Outlook, Excel, PowerPoint, and these are specifically designed to work together. We oppose those to specialty applications, which are software that just does one specific thing, an e-software program, a computer-assisted design program, something of that nature, litigation management program. These are specialty applications. So again, as I said, computer-assisted design might be used by our architects, designers, things like that. Again, litigation management software would be used in the law office. So again, targeted to one specific item. So the legal specific software programs that we use, and we've introduced at the beginning of the class, are the ones that we're going to be talking about throughout the class. We have programs that perform office management, the business of the law office, case management, programs that allow us to manage various cases, whether they're litigation or non-litigation cases, litigation support, documents that are programs that are related specifically to the support of litigation, and document management. Again, this can be from a litigation standpoint or a non-litigation standpoint. And then finally, within the litigation rubric, trial presentation. One of the things I wanted to bring out now is the issue of security. One of the things that's important for any computer user, and certainly for a law office or any business, is to have the use of an uninterruptible power supply, a UPS. UPSs are essentially huge batteries that are used to back up the power in the event of an electrical power failure. If you don't have one of those, I strongly encourage you to get one. They will supply, depending upon how much money you spend on it. It really depends, again, the price of how much time that they'll allow the computer to continue to function. What having this backup power prevents a shutdown and a loss of data. As many of you may know, most computer software programs we have out there are constantly backing themselves up. So if there's a shutdown, you can be certain that there's going to be a backup there. But the question is how often you've set the program to back up. So if you have an uninterruptible power supply, it's more likely that you will not lose a lot of data, because you're going to have that power that will allow the computer to continue to operate and either be shut down in a normal course with minimal risks, or shut down after the battery power wears out, but still with the idea that the data may have been backed up. So, for instance, if we had a power surge at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's not likely anybody's going to have been working at that time. But if you have that backup power supply, you know that the data is going to be there. Another thing is important to take into consideration is security issues. And I think about this in connection with the use of networks. And this is particularly important with public Wi-Fi networks. As we've discussed, it's important that you not use public Wi-Fi areas or systems to do any legal work. This can expose your computer to being hacked, and potential client privileged confidential client information to be exposed, or from your own standpoint, personal financial data, passwords, social security numbers, and things like that. So public Wi-Fi, the use of that for anything other than browsing newspapers or something like that is really not a great idea. Another security issue that's becoming more and more important is with lost or stolen devices, whether it's phone or tablets. Apple, I know I'm an Apple user, and it seems to me it has kind of the ultimate security with the face recognition to open it up, or a password if the face recognition isn't available. For instance, if you let somebody else use your computer. So if you don't have the facial recognition or the fingerprint recognition, if you are going to have a password, it's important to have a strong, robust password. And again, one of the great thing that's built into these modern phones is the ability to remotely brick the phones. By brick, we mean essentially turning them into a brick, because if it has been stolen, you can remotely essentially disable the phone and make it a useless device. So again, we're constantly going to be involved in security, and is something that we'll be talking about throughout the class. Going back to discussing the general application, especially application software, there's somewhat of a blur in some of these. And again, going back to things like general application softwares, suites like Office 365, we have the ability to layer on other programs to integrate with them, and these programs are outside of the Office application suites. So, for instance, both LexisNexis and Westlaw, which are legal research programs, they have add-ons that can add into Microsoft Word to allow you to use Word and to import data from the program, the research programs into Word. Similarly, many of you are familiar with Adobe Acrobat and other types of PDF software systems, and we see these also being integrated into Word, and allowing us within Word to convert documents into PDF files, and vice versa. Okay. The next issue that the text talks about, and I want to talk about a little bit, is the the use having licenses. When you buy software, many people are not aware that you really don't own the software in itself. What you possess is a license, and that's the agreement to allow you to use the software, and the license will specify the terms for it. So if you buy again, a particular piece of software, let's call it a computer-assisted design software, the license usually will allow that to be used by one, maybe perhaps two users. And if you want more users to be able to use it, you have to spend more money. It makes sense. We have to keep this in mind, because unauthorized use of software is theft. And a lot of times you'll see warnings of this when you install software on devices, warning you that if you don't possess the necessary license for it and are using it, you're essentially stealing property. So again, we have single user licenses, and then more often there'd be different types of network licenses that would license 3, 5, 10, 15, 20. It depends on again the type of system. I'm negotiating right now with a software vendor for one of the other classes I teach, and they're providing us different prices for the software, depending upon the number of students that are going to be using the software. So again, that's a network license. All right. Move forward. Okay, the slide you're looking at now, again, is another depiction of a computer network. Again, this is taken from the textbook, showing the hub as essentially is the routing the information. Okay, it's important to distinguish between different types of networks. And we refer to networks into two ways. One is a local area network, a LAN, and the other one is a wide area network, WAN. A local area network is one that's in one location, or perhaps a whole building, or when you think of Cerritos College, the entire campus. So if you log on to the Cerritos network, you're on the Cerritos College local area network, which is a computer network specific to the entire college. Wide area network is essentially a network of networks, and the ultimate wide area network is the internet. It covers a large geographic area, and the network, internet indeed is worldwide, but is made up of other networks. When you think of totalitarian countries like China, North Korea, Iran, that restrict access to the internet, they have their own wide area networks, networks of networks that are specific to those countries. So that illustrates the difference. So again, we have different types of networks. The one that we're most common with are wireless networks, which allows computers to communicate over the airwaves instead of wired connections. Wireless networks have become so widespread, it's hard to remember a day when we didn't have them. But you think in most offices still together are networked through a hardwire system, in different types of communication devices. Networks are managed by the administrators of the computers, and those administrators are responsible for allowing access, denying access, etc. As we'll talk later on in the semester, one network issue that might come up is if a lawyer from a competing law firm joins a law firm. The network may have to be configured in such a way to block that new lawyer's access to certain cases that might have involved his or her former law firm. So again, that's a very specific legal aspect of monitoring networks and setting up essentially a firewall to prevent that person from getting in. Again, the ultimate breach of a firewall is if someone is able to implant a virus on a computer system and thereby gain access to the computer system through use of viruses. As we talked initially, one of the most common way, perhaps, of putting a virus on a computer system is through an innocuous email that appears to be normal, sent to some user on the network. If that user in the network opens an email and opens a file on the email, that file may be masquerading as a PDF file or a Word file or a link to some website, but is in reality a computer program that is then installed on the network and used to take over the computer network. This is what viruses can result in ransom. And we talked about ransomware in the first class session, and this is occurs when a group is able to fully take over a computer network of a business or a law firm, hospital, school, government, etc., and takes it over in such a way, and is so complex that it's essentially impossible to break their hold on it, and they force you to pay ransom to regain your system. That we use different types of antivirus software. We'll be talking about throughout the class to scan the computer for the presence of viruses and eliminate them. These antivirus software programs can target and analyze email and block people's ability to download suspicious files or to click on suspicious links. And as the slide indicates, it's incredibly important that we back up our data regularly in order to prevent the loss of critical files. In the event of a natural disaster or ransomware, etc. If a computer system is backed up regularly in such a way that the backup is insulated from the rest of the network, the ransomware can become less effective, because the business can essentially start up with all of its data intact. So again, backing up is critical. For every person in this class, I strongly encourage you to use a cloud backup for all of your data. In addition to backing it up on a flash drive if you want to have it locally, but you can get a robust amount of free backup from a number of sources that will allow you to back up your data safely and securely. And so if your computer is lost or stolen or damaged, you won't lose any data. All right, that's the end of the lecture for chapter 3. of the textbook. We'll follow with a separate lecture for chapter 4.